This is the best thing you'll see all week. Pete Hegseth was forced to walk on burning coals for 4 hours straight by Democrats in his Senate confirmation hearing, and he still came out looking really strong. But I need to show you a few minutes from the hearing that exemplify this perfectly, as Pete navigated Elizabeth Warren's verbal traps in a way that I've never seen before, while totally embarrassing her in the process. Take a look for yourself, because there is so much that I need to tell you about.
For 12 years, you were quite open about your views, and your views were consistently the same. Women are inferior soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians. And in case anyone missed the point, and these are your words from 10 weeks ago, women absolutely straight up should not be permitted to serve in combat. And I notice on each of these quotes, those are said without qualification. It's not by how much you can lift or how fast you can run. They don't belong in combat, period, or your words, straight up. And then on November 9th, 2024, just 32 days after your last public comment saying that women absolutely should not be in combat, you declared that, quote, some of our greatest warriors are women, and you support having them serve in combat. Now, that is a very, very big about face in a very, very short period of time. So help me understand, Mr. Hegseth, what extraordinary event happened in that 32-day period that made you change the core values you had expressed for the preceding 12 years?
Senator, again, I very much appreciate you bringing up my comments from 2013, because for me, this issue has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in political power for the last 4 years, priorities other than standards, lethality, and meritocracy have driven decision-making.
What? After that entire monologue, he doesn't even get 10 seconds to respond? But I think I know why that is. The entire question of what Pete Hegseth thinks about putting women on the front lines is being framed as an accusation of misogyny, when it's actually a question of something else that Pete knows he has to be blunt about if he's going to be the head of the Department of Defense. It's that a certain flavor of the broader DEI movement in our culture has finally started to creep into our military, and it's time to have the tough conversation about standards. By the way, we're having some really important conversations here every day, so please be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to join us. Now, more concerningly, it came when the US military officially revised and lowered its standards for women in the Army combat fitness test when females were disproportionately failing the gender-neutral test.
There's no better recruiter, in my mind, for our military than President Donald Trump. My job is to come alongside him, should I be confirmed, and continue to emphasize his emphasis on warfighting, on getting anything that doesn't contribute to meritocracy out of how decisions are made inside the Pentagon. What gender you are, what race you are, your views on climate change, or whether you are a person of conscience and your faith should have no bearing on whether you get promoted or whether you're selected to go to West Point or whether you graduate from Ranger School. The only thing that should matter is how capable are you at your job? How excellent are you at your job? I served in multi-ethnic units in every place that I served. None of that mattered. But suddenly we re-inject DEI and critical race theory, dividing troops into different categories, oppressor and oppressed.
And that's precisely why Pete Hegseth made a lot of people very angry just a few months ago when he came out to proclaim that in the military, diversity is not strength, rather your shared purpose is your strength. And even the people picking him apart for it, like Elizabeth Warren, understand that Pete here is referring to a leftist reading of the word diversity that's often just skin deep. There's definitely a debate to be had forever about gender politics, but there's no room to do that in an arena as sensitive as the military. Not just that, it's simply a mathematical reality that when DEI is the priority, merit falls by the wayside. That's because in a military that's already facing a massive recruitment crisis, you just can't afford to search for the right mix of races, sexes, and orientation without sacrificing merit. That's what Pete Hegseth always said, and the idea that Elizabeth Warren would try to use his words of admiration for female soldiers as a way to somehow prove he's backtracked on this fundamental idea just shows you how eager she is to weaponize and politicize any agreeable statement to begin with.
Senator, the concerns I have and the concerns that many have had, especially in ground combat units, is that in pursuit of certain percentages or quotas, standards have been changed. And that makes the combat more difficult
Let me make a
for everybody
suggestion
involved.
about what happened in that 32 days. You got a nomination from President Trump. Now, I've heard of deathbed conversions, but this is the first time I've heard of a nomination conversion. And I hope you understand that many women serving in the military right now might think that if you can convert so rapidly your long-held and aggressively pursued views in just 32 days, that 32 days after you get confirmed, maybe you'll just reverse those views and go back to the old guy who said straight up, women do not belong in combat.
I'm not sure she's even listening to herself. The idea that Pete would even shift his position to appease someone like Trump just doesn't really sound right when Trump probably already agrees with him on DEI in the military. And if someone opposes this, it's not because they don't want a certain race or sex in the military. It's because they know that making it a priority would be taking your eye off the ball. I mean, just this past month, even the FBI came out to announce that they are getting rid of their DEI office, which begs the question, why on earth did the FBI have a diversity office in the first place? Anyone that asks that question is put on the moral back foot when it's the most pertinent question you could be asking as world peace seems shakier than ever. Now, amid some of the ridiculous questions in this entire hearing that even inquired about his marital life and infidelity, we finally get to see the worthwhile moment from Pete Hegseth when he calmly dismantles Elizabeth Warren with just a single sentence over the question of the so-called revolving door policy in Washington between military generals and defense contractors. Listen to this.
Now, Mr. Hegseth, you have written that after they retire, generals should be banned from working for the defense industry for 10 years. You and I agree on the corrosive effects of the revolving door between the Pentagon and defense contractors. It's something I would have liked to talk to you about if you'd come and been willing to visit with me. But the question I have for you on this is, will you put your money where your mouth is and agree that when you leave this job, you will not work for the defense industry for 10 years?
Senator, it's not even a question I've thought about because
You can
it's
think
not
about
one
it right
that,
now.
It's not one, my motivation for this job
I understand
has never
that. I
been
just
about
need
what
a
could
yes or no
conceivably
here.
come next.
Time is short. I just need a yes or no.
I would consult with the president about what the policy should be
In
at the Defense
other
Department.
words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the president
Oh, I'll
is.
bet you would.
Well, Elizabeth probably has a more interesting career arc set out for Pete than even he has for himself. From Army veteran to Fox News host to heading the Defense Department and becoming privately employed by defense contractors. I love how Pete Hegseth demolished all of that by simply reminding her that there's a difference between military generals versus private civilians. Right now, all eyes are on whether he can supplement Donald Trump's agenda for revamping and strengthening the military. If that happens, all other debates seem like a distraction right now, but let me know in the comments if you agree, because Pete Hegseth has a lot of work to do if he wants to prove them all wrong.